Welcome to Geology 3330 Geomorphology. We are going to today start with a new unit, which is the fluvial system. If you will recall, last week in our class, we were talking about the hydrologic system, and the fluvial system was one of the divisions of the hydrologic system. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to start out in the introduction talking about the hydrologic system. We will then talk about processes, how sediment is transported through the hydrologic system. And then in the third and final group, we will talk about flooding and the deltaic portion of the hydrologic system. With that, I would like to move to our PowerPoint presentation. To start our discussion on the fluvial system, I have this image in the background of Santa Elena Canyon in West Texas in Big Bend National Park. The Santa Elena Canyon illustrates one of the key principles that we will talk about in the fluvial system, that is that a river system consists of downcutting, which is what the Rio Grande River is doing here, slope retreat, which is widening the canyon that we see here, and headward erosion, which is extending the Rio Grande drainage further up into New Mexico. You will recall that last week we talked about the hydrologic system, and in the hydrologic system we talked about the evaporation of water, condensation as rain, and the return of that water back to the ocean. When we talk about the fluvial system, it is the most important part of the hydrologic system because it is responsible for the development of the landscape and producing and modifying the landscape on all of the continents. It is by far the most important subsystem of the hydrologic system that we have. And today what we're going to do is we're going to look at that fluvial system and see what its divisions and what its parts are. Our goal when it comes to the hydrologic system is, one, to understand how the hydrologic system operates to produce the valleys and the topography which we see. Second, to study and understand the fluid mechanics of the fluvial system. Third is to recognize and understand the topographic features that are associated with the river system and with the floodplain associated with the river system. The objectives are for you as a student, when you're done, to be able to divide the drainage basin into its three segments, list and define the different degrees of flooding, draw a river channel, and with the use of aerials indicate where the river is flowing the fastest and where the water is flowing the slowest. Also look at what happens to the river system when it rounds a bend in the river. Draw a floodplain and label the locations of each of the features, and then discuss the origin of each of these physiographic features and on the floodplain, and discuss the different types of flooding. I like to start this introduction with this image that's in the background here of the Colorado River in the bottom of the Grand Canyon. This young man that's standing here is standing on a point bar, which is deposited by the Colorado River in the bottom of the Grand Canyon. That is a temporary holding area for sediment. As you look up this river system, you can see that it bends off behind the young man and then bends back the other way. Those are meander bends. The point bar is one part of the meander bend, and the cut bank, which is where the stream is cutting immediately behind him, is the other. So the principal features that we see here are a point bar where deposition is occurring and a cut bank where erosion is occurring, and we're looking at the temporary holding of sediment. We also hope that in this introduction that you'll have a better understanding of deltas and the classification of deltas, where the Colorado River is going into the Gulf of California. It is building a huge delta system there, and we're going to talk about delta systems. The first topic that we need to address is the topic of drainage basins. All rivers have a drainage basin or an area which they drain. The drainage basin is usually divided into smaller and smaller and smaller river channels, stream channels, or very small channels, and ends up at the high point around the drainage basin. This high point around the drainage basin, as you can see illustrated in the lower left-hand slide, is the drainage divide. So you've got the drainage basin that comes up the drainage divide on one side, that's drainage basin A, and the drainage basin coming up on the other side, which is drainage basin B. And you can see how the drainage basin completely goes around the drainage divide goes completely around the drainage basin in the diagram in the upper right. If we look at North America, there are a number of principal drainage basins you have. Probably the one that is most significant is the Mississippi River drainage, which you can see where we live. We live within the Mississippi River drainage here at Stephen F. Austin State University. If you go up into northern Canada, you have the Mackenzie River drainage, which is in light green, and you have the Yukon River drainage, which is in brown. If you go to the west, you see the Columbia River drainage in Oregon and Washington, and the Colorado River drainage that empties into the Gulf of California. These are the major drainage basins that we have in North America. When we look at how you divide a drainage basin, a drainage basin is divided into three parts: a collection part, a transportation part, and a deposition part. If you look at the image on the right, you can see that up in the headwaters you have the top of the drainage basin with a drainage divide that totally surrounds it. You then have a channel segment or a transportation part where sediment is being deposited, and you see the meandering of the channel. And then at the very bottom, you see the deposition, which is in this case an alluvial fan that is covered with sagebrush against the green edge of the floodplain. Well, that concludes our introduction to the fluvial system. The important parts that we've talked about in our discussion, in our introduction to the fluvial system, is one, the idea or concept of a drainage basin, which is where the water for the fluvial system collects, and that's where most of the water falls from the hydrologic system. Two, we've divided the drainage basin into three different divisions, into the collection, transportation, and deposition. It is now time for you to go to D2L, download the questions for this segment, answer them, and upload them to D2L. Thanks again for joining us, and we will see you next time.